January 20th, 2012. The quiet of a New Zealand morning is suddenly torn apart. Helicopters roar overhead. Armored vehicles stop abruptly at the gate. Kim Dotcom stands alone inside a safe room, his heart pounding, cold sweat forming despite the sealed walls. At this moment, he is not thinking about Megaupload, not about hundreds of millions of dollars, not even about his reputation. In his mind, there is only the image of his pregnant wife and his children, still too young to understand what is happening. Outside the thick steel door, armed officers have surrounded the entire property. There is no way out. On the floor, within arm's reach, lies a short-barreled shotgun. For a brief moment, Kim stares at it, not because he wants to fight, but because he knows that stepping outside means everything is over. The empire, the power, the image of being untouchable that he spent years building will disappear. Kim takes a deep breath. He thinks of his family. He thinks of the consequences of one wrong choice. Then he lowers his gaze, his hand falling away from the weapon. He knows he has lost, not to the police, but to the very game he once believed he could control until the end. Before the world knew the name Kim Dotcom, there was only a boy named Kim Schmitz growing up in isolation. In a small town in Germany, Kim was different from the other kids. Overweight, withdrawn, his eyes always searching for a place to escape reality. At school, Kim did not belong. He was not athletic, not popular, not surrounded by friends. Conversations in the schoolyard made him feel like an outsider looking in. But when he returned home, shut his bedroom door, and turned on his computer, Kim entered a completely different world. A world where no one judged his appearance, no one mocked his awkwardness. Only lines of code, systems governed by logic, cold and fair. The computer became Kim's safest refuge, the one place where he could control everything using his own mind. When Kim discovered that every system had weaknesses, that walls thought to be unbreakable could be bypassed, a new feeling emerged: control. For Kim, hacking was not about money. It was about power. For the first time in his life, he felt intelligent, capable, important. In a real world that ignored him, Kim learned that by understanding systems deeply enough, he could control what existed on the other side of the screen. And from that moment, a dangerous belief quietly began to form. That order was not fixed. That power belonged to those who understood the system better than everyone else. When Kim Schmitz began attracting the attention of authorities, it did not shock him. It felt inevitable. His first arrests came while he was still young, when the line between curiosity and crime was blurry. He was questioned, taken to court, confronted by figures of authority he had only seen in books or on television. But then something unexpected happened. Instead of harsh punishment, Kim received suspended sentences. Instead of prison doors closing, he walked free with his liberty mostly intact. Judges described his actions as youthful foolishness, a mistake that could be forgiven. To the system, it was a minor case. But to Kim, it left a deep mark. He realized that the law was not as rigid as it appeared, that if you were smart enough, confident enough, and knew how to present yourself, consequences could be negotiated. Each time Kim escaped serious punishment, he did not grow more afraid. He grew more confident. He felt that he understood the system better, how it worked, where it bent. Slowly, a quiet but dangerous belief took hold in his mind, that the law was not an unbreakable wall, but a structure that could be shaped, that the line between right and wrong was not absolute, but depended on how you stood before it. These early encounters with justice did not stop Kim. They taught him he could go further, and that lesson, planted early, would return years later when the scale of the game became far larger, and the system Kim believed he could control decided it would not bend again. After facing the law multiple times, Kim Schmitz understood that if he wanted to move forward, he could not carry his old name with him. He needed reinvention. A new identity, large enough to bury the past, flashy enough to open a different future. That was when Kim Dotcom was born. Not just a name, but a statement. A surname tied directly to the internet, to the exploding digital era. Kim left Europe behind. He left old records, suspicious glances, and the constant feeling of being watched. He moved from place to place, searching for a fresh starting point where the past would no longer weigh him down. In Kim's mind, this was not running away, it was starting over. He convinced himself that he was wiser now, more mature, that his previous mistakes were merely stepping stones. Kim Dotcom no longer wanted to be seen as a rebellious hacker. He wanted to become a tech entrepreneur, a symbol of internet freedom. By changing his name, his environment, and the way he presented himself to the world, Kim believed he could control his own narrative, that if he started far enough away, different enough, he could write a new version of himself, one where rules were no longer barriers, but obstacles standing behind ambition. The idea for Megaupload did not come from a sudden flash of genius, but from a simple observation. The internet was booming, yet sharing files was slow, complicated, and limited. Kim saw a massive gap, a place where anyone could upload, store, and share data through a single simple link. When Megaupload launched, it instantly matched the needs of the moment. No technical knowledge required, no complex accounts, just a few clicks. Its convenience spread at an explosive pace. Users shared links with each other, forums, emails, personal blogs filled with Megaupload URLs. In a short time, the user base grew exponentially. Millions, then tens of millions of visits per day. Servers ran non-stop. Data flowed in from every corner of the world. Music, movies, software, documents, all moving at speeds even Kim did not anticipate. Revenue surged through advertising and premium subscriptions. The numbers on Kim's dashboards kept climbing, and each one reinforced a familiar feeling: control. The sense of standing above a system that millions of people depended on daily. Megaupload was no longer a project. It had become part of the internet itself. And in Kim's mind, something that large could not be touched. He began to believe he was not just running a service, but holding invisible power. Power that made laws feel slow, governments hesitant. Success came too fast to allow self-doubt. Instead, it whispered a dangerous message, that he had gone too far to be stopped, that Kim Dotcom was, once again, untouchable. Money from Megaupload poured in so fast that Kim Dotcom lost his sense of proportion. Tens of millions of dollars a year, then more, appearing like clockwork. Kim began living the life he believed he deserved. Massive estates, towering fences, iron gates like fortresses, supercars lined up in his garages, each one not just transportation, but a declaration of power. Lavish parties stretched deep into the night. Lights, music, alcohol, celebrities. Kim stood at the center of every scene, laughing loudly, speaking boldly, absorbing attention. In this world, he was no longer the lonely boy from Germany. He saw himself as an internet icon, someone representing digital freedom. Kim spoke of himself as if he were a movement, a force of nature. Wealth did more than buy comfort. It nurtured a dangerous belief that everything was under control, that rules existed for slower people. That success itself was proof of being right. In this intoxication of power, Kim stopped noticing warning signs. He became accustomed to winning, to crossing lines without consequence, and that familiarity blinded him. Success was no longer the result of good choices. It became armor, a shield that made Kim believe he had reached a place where no one, not even governments, would dare to touch him. The mega song was not entertainment. For Kim Dotcom, it was a public declaration that he was no longer afraid. When the video dropped, famous faces appeared. Lyrics praising Megaupload echoed like mockery toward the entertainment industry. Kim did not see provocation. He saw victory. In his mind, he was not a villain. He viewed himself as a digital age Robin Hood, taking power from massive corporations and giving it back to the public. Media quickly split into camps. Some praised Kim as a symbol of internet freedom, a man bold enough to challenge Hollywood. Others labeled him a tech pirate. Debates erupted everywhere, on television, in newspapers, across social media. Kim appeared more frequently in public, answering interviews with near arrogance. He believed public opinion favored him. What he failed to realize was that the noise had crossed an invisible line. Hollywood's anger was one thing, but now the attention of the US government had been triggered. When a foreign individual openly challenged copyright enforcement, generated hundreds of millions in revenue, and gained massive public support, the issue became political. It became about power. Behind closed doors, meetings began. Files were reopened, names were underlined. Kim Dotcom continued smiling in front of cameras, unaware that the wheels of a much larger machine had begun turning. From that moment forward, there was only one direction left, straight into a confrontation with no escape. While Kim Dotcom enjoyed his spotlight, a quiet alliance was forming across the ocean. Hollywood moved beyond anger into action. Film studios, record labels, copyright lawyers knocked on doors in Washington. The FBI and the Department of Justice listened, first under pressure, then with growing concern as they grasped the true scale of the operation. SOPA collapsed under public backlash, and Kim celebrated it as a personal victory. He believed the internet had chosen his side, that governments were forced to retreat. But Kim could not see what was happening in the shadows. When laws failed publicly, the strategy simply changed. No more loud debates, no public threats, only private meetings, internal emails, files growing thicker by the day. Kim Dotcom's name appeared again and again in classified reports. Transactions, servers, money flows were dissected with clinical precision. This was no longer about copyright. It became about power, about a single individual pushing beyond what the system could tolerate. Meanwhile, Kim remained comfortable in his sense of safety. Parties continued. Tweets kept coming. He mistook silence for surrender. What he did not realize was that this silence was preparation. And when the storm arrived, it would come without warning. January 19th, 2012. The internet woke up to the unthinkable. Megaupload was gone. A site once familiar to millions now displayed a stark notice from US authorities. Almost simultaneously, Megaupload servers across multiple countries were seized. Data locked down, funds frozen. A system that never slept fell silent. Coordinated raids unfolded like a military operation. For investigators, it was the decisive blow. For users, pure shock. But for Kim Dotcom, the moment passed in darkness. That night, Kim slept in his mansion, believing everything remained under control. He did not hear servers shutting down, did not see data centers being sealed, did not know his empire was collapsing layer by layer. He remained trapped in the illusion of safety that had followed him since earlier escapes from the law. He believed that if something went wrong, he would have time to react. This time, the system did not knock. It turned off the lights. And when Kim opened his eyes the next morning, the world he knew no longer existed. At dawn, on January 20th, 2012, silence around Kim Dotcom's mansion shattered. Helicopters circled above. Boots thundered across the property. Gates were breached. Armed officers poured in from all sides. His family woke in terror. His pregnant wife was restrained. His children cried in confusion. Kim ran upstairs, locking himself inside the safe room he once believed symbolized control. The steel door closed, but safety did not follow. His heart raced. His breath grew heavy. Every sound outside echoed loudly. In that small space, his empire meant nothing. Only raw fear remained. When officers breached the safe room, Kim did not resist. He stood still, eyes hollow. At the same time, across the world, his assets were frozen. Accounts closed. Cars, homes, servers seized. In a matter of hours, Kim Dotcom lost not just his wealth, but the illusion of power that had protected him for years. For the first time, he understood absolute helplessness. No system left to control, no rules left to bend. Just a man standing in the ruins of his own ambitio. After the raid, Kim Dotcom was no longer an untouchable internet king. He was detained, labeled a flight risk, placed in a reality far removed from luxury. The early days of confinement were heavy, forcing Kim to confront life without control. Then cracks began to appear. His lawyers uncovered serious procedural errors. Search warrants were overly broad. Data was illegally copied and transferred overseas. Technical details became lifelines. Kim was released on bail, reunited with his family, but not truly free. From hunted man, he turned to legal counterattack. Courtrooms replaced helicopters. Paperwork replaced guns. Public opinion fractured. Some saw Kim as a victim of government overreach. Others viewed him as a profiteer delaying justice. Kim returned to public view, less flamboyant but still defiant, speaking of freedom and fairness. Yet beneath the words lay a simple truth. This fight was no longer about Megaupload. It was about reclaiming identity in a world where Kim Dotcom no longer controlled his fate. To this day, Kim Dotcom has not been extradited to the United States. His legal battle, stretching over a decade, has transformed his case into a symbol of the digital age. He no longer lives in extreme luxury, nor stands at the peak of internet power, but he remains in a gray zone. To some, Kim Dotcom is a criminal who built an empire on broken rules. To others, he is proof that technology moves faster than law, and individuals can be crushed when they challenge massive systems. The real question is not whether Kim was right or wrong. It is what happens when power shifts from governments and corporations to individuals who understand systems better than anyone else. In the digital era, the line between innovation and crime, freedom and control, hero and villain, has never been thinner. Kim Dotcom crossed that line and paid a price that is still unfolding. But this story does not end with Kim. When hackers stopped challenging Hollywood and began trading identities, lives, and personal data, the consequences become far more dangerous. If you want to understand what happens when the underground no longer shares movies, but shares you, the next story begins there. Genesis Market, where identity becomes currency, and the game grows far more dangerous.